So there was quite a heated moment that unfolded in the White House press room the other day. You had the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. She was sort of getting yelled at by a member of the media who was furious. And look, I think it's fair to say furious for a legitimate reason. That this dude was sitting in there for about 7 or 8 months, and he never once got a question. They never once called on him. And by the way, this is how it works in this little clique, this little like high school club. They have their favorites that they go to all the time, and you got like they're like the teacher's pets, and then you got the outcasts, and this poor guy's trying to do his damn job, and he basically got berated for it. So the guy is Simon Atiba, however you say it, and he is a chief White House correspondent for Today News Africa. So it's quite a video. We'll watch it and then we'll break it down.
You can't keep discriminating against some people in the briefing room because you don't like them, you don't like them.
So you have a choice.
No,
you have a choice. You have a choice.
A number of people in the briefing room, and I'm saying that that's not right. This is not China. This is not Russia. This is the United States. This is the White House. No. It's been 7 months. I sent you
The rest of us are here too, pal.
It's been 7 months. You guys have not done anything for me.
If you have grievances, you should bring them to her later.
I have done that. I've done that. All my emails have been ignored.
And the press corps is tired of dealing with this.
It isn't just about you, Simon.
I understand that you get questioned all the time and you don't understand what it is to sit here for 8 months and being discriminated against. I understand that you're in the front row and you feel comfortable and you get questioned all the time. But there are people in the back who don't get any questions.
Don't make assumptions about what the rest of us do. Mind your manners when you're in here. If you have a problem, you bring it up afterwards. But you are impinging on everybody in here who's only trying to do their job.
Okay, thank you. I'm saying that you shouldn't discriminate against some people because you don't agree with their question, you're offended by your question.
You made your point.
We all heard it.
So what you heard there was all of the other reporters yelling at this reporter and saying, "Mind your manners! Where's your decorum? If you have a problem, you reach out afterwards. You don't do it like this right here." Yeah, but the problem is, and this guy's on the record, he's been saying this, hey, I've been emailing, I've been calling, I've been reaching out every single way that I can, and I literally never get a response. I never get a response. So what am I supposed to do? I try to reach out every imaginable way, no response, radio silence. I come and sit in the press briefing room. I've been sitting here for 7 or 8 months. I've never got a single question. So now I finally pipe up and say, hey man, just so you know, a little bit unfair. You might want to try to, divvy up the time in a way that's more reasonable. And what happens? The other reporters, these are like, they're suckling at the teat of power, trying to snuggle up to the administration, like, how dare you? You sit there for 10 months if you have to. You sit there for 3 years if you have to. You're violating the decorum of this room. No, what's violating the decorum of the room is the fact that she never calls on reporters from outlets that she doesn't think are reasonable or viable. That there's this incestuous relationship between corporate media, the establishment media, and the White House. That's the problem. Now, by the way, these people had the nerve. They had the nerve to say, oh, this guy, he was destroying the spirit of the First Amendment. Something along those lines. Like this is anti-First Amendment what he did. Are you kidding me? The White House dodging questions, never calling on people who are from other outlets that are not corporate media and well-established, that is way more anti-First Amendment than a reporter finally speaking up and saying, hey man, this is not right. This is not fair. This is my job. I never got a single quote from you. And so, look, I think this clip is very illustrative of what goes on in Washington, D.C. and the way the game works. I mean, I see a lot of parallels with how Marianne Williamson is treated. She's an outsider. She's never been a politician. She's never held elected office. There's this scornful, derisive, look down your nose, condescending, smug, arrogant view of like, how dare you? Like, get out of here. You don't have the right to even talk. And here you have a journalist who works for Today News Africa who they just look down their nose at and they're like, excuse you, dismissed. Don't need you, don't want you, don't care if you're upset, never cared if you're upset. No other members of the media who are sitting there who suck up to power are going to write an article saying, hey man, they haven't called on this guy in 8 months. Nobody's going to write that article. Which, by the way, they should. And so he has to try to bring about justice by himself. And he gets screwed over in the process and berated even more by other reporters than by the press secretary. By the way, this clip is longer. The clip goes on. They keep berating him. They keep berating him. Every single one of those reporters who is shaming this guy, they should be ashamed. They shouldn't even be in the media. They should just go find another line of work, because clearly they don't understand the way this is supposed to work. The way this is supposed to work is you guys are a watchdog of the government, not a lapdog. So you don't suck up to power. You take the side of the guy in the media and say, hey man, if he hasn't been asked a question in 8 months, you guys got to make this right. You should grant like a one-on-one interview to this dude and give him at least 30 minutes. Let him ask real questions. This guy had the nerve to speak up and say, there's not supposed to be a hierarchy in here. There's not supposed to be a pecking order. You're not supposed to, suck off CNN and MSNBC the most and ABC and CBS. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to treat us all with some semblance of fairness. But they don't do that. And they're proud of that fact. They're proud of that fact. It just shows you the club that they have. And it is absolutely grotesque, man. It really is. It is so sickening. Again, the saddest part is the other reporters. People who think they're journalists, who start berating this poor guy just because he's trying to do his job, and how smug they are in the process. Ugh, it makes me so sick, man. It makes me so sick. And again, you wonder why new media and independent media is on the rise. It's because of stuff like this. And I'm not saying new media and independent media has no problems, because we have deep, deep problems. I think the biggest problem in new media and independent media is what we call audience capture. It's very common in new media and independent media, but at least people get the sense with new media and independent media, there's none of this. There's none of this sort of stuff, the rigid hierarchy, the smugness, the arrogance. It's very conservative by its nature. You know what I mean? It's like, how dare you know your role and understand you don't get questions. Well, I'm happy this guy spoke up. I'm happy he shed light on this. And, without a doubt, they need to make an effort, right? To call on the smaller outlets, the other outlets, more often. Because, by the way, I guarantee you this, you're going to get better questions from most of those outlets. You really are. Because these are the people who aren't in the circle of power, so they feel like they have the leeway to be a little tougher and ask more real questions. Not play patty cakes with elites. So anyway, there you have it. Solidarity with Simon, and shame on the White House, but more importantly, shame on the other reporters who have totally lost the plot and don't even understand what their job is. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.